Hi guys. So this has been a video that's been mulling around in my head. It's a concept that I strongly believe in, and it's why you guys should consider trying out PC. I know a lot of you guys are on console, and I'm not here to directly bash console or console players. If that's your perception, please just leave the video. I'm not interested in your fanboy bullshit in the comment section. This is a video to actually represent people who don't know where to go as of right now, with 1 year left until new consoles drop. If not, they should attempt to break into the PC market. As you guys know, RTX is now available. It's been available for a while now, and new CPUs are getting better and better and better and cheaper. And I don't want to see people screwed over by introducing themselves into a console market and being let down because the consoles aren't what they promised. As in the past, consoles have had false claims, they've had really anti-consumer policies, and in all regards, console has pushed me away from liking their platform. With PlayStation now having its gold service, which it's had for almost 4 to 5 years now, I never really enjoyed it because the idea of having to pay for a service and having none of that money go to the developers who host those multiplayer games is unfair to me. Not only that, but the PlayStation Gold service provides me with an opportunity to get games, but many of the times I found it was games that I could get on PC for way cheaper, and in some cases free. Not only that, but the games may not even have been what I wanted. It wasn't fitting my demographic, which was super annoying. And I'm not a hardcore online player, so I never really took full advantage of the PlayStation Gold, meaning I was just kind of in this limbo where I was paying for something I may not even use that month, and I may receive games I'm not even interested in, which sucked. It really made the console this not worthwhile investment anymore, so I just stopped paying for Gold. And when games were available that had online that I wanted to play, I just opted not to play it because I didn't feel like paying for a service that I might not use in a week. They didn't provide me with the tools to enjoy the experience on the console. This may not be your case, but it was the case for myself. Along came streaming, and for a long time I really tried to use the consoles to the best of my ability, and what I noticed was it really wasn't worth my time. Trying to use a console and a capture card and get it to stream properly was an endeavor, to say the least. It was expensive. I had to pay for everything outright. And at the end of the day, when I was streaming PS2 titles, I could have just emulated them on a decent PC. One of the things I always hear about consoles is controllers are great. But what if you're like me and you have onset arthritis? Maybe controllers don't work for you, or they just simply hurt. When Wii was available, I enjoyed the Wii because it was simple. I only had to use my thumbs and occasionally my index fingers. It didn't hurt my hands. But playing PS4 for extended periods of time really caused my hands to cramp up, and it reflected in my later days when I was at work dropping things because I couldn't grip them properly. Especially in the winter, as somebody who opts to walk, I didn't have the opportunity to use a more comfortable controller, something that fit me. Larger controllers are usually the better option for me, but even then, I'm gripping and using my thumbs and my index fingers almost primarily. When I made my transfer over to PC, there were so many people available for me to get prints or different types of hardware to fit my hand and be ergonomic and appropriate for something that I suffered with. It was important for me to make that switch for my love of this medium. Now, of course, this is a niche excuse, but it's something to consider if you find yourself with pain in your hands. Maybe try a mouse and keyboard. It could be very beneficial to you. And definitely take the time to look at the peripherals you're using and see if that's what is causing it. Consoles are nice for living rooms. They're great for your living room. They sit underneath your TV. You can throw on Netflix and just use the controller. And I can understand why a lot of people would assume that is the most convenient form factor. But in reality, you could do more with a PC, and they have, again, more peripherals available. For Christmas, I actually picked my younger sister up a micro PC that you sit underneath the TV, and it came with a full QWERTY keyboard and touchpad that was wireless, and she was able to even play Mario and things like that on this computer with this QWERTY keypad, which was really interesting experience, and it was really cool to see her utilize something in a really unique way. And I realized that day that PC just had so much more going for it, and the opportunity that it presents itself to its consumer in not even just a gaming aspect, but the ability to have multiple tabs open and explore different things, like watching a documentary while you throw it in a corner and then having your music over here that's slightly lower than that. And then you could have another window where you have Facebook down in a corner and another window. Things like that are really interesting to see people utilize their PC while they can also have a game active on a completely different screen and have somebody playing that game with a controller. Again, bringing back the controller. This has been my experience for a long time. When I lived with somebody else, I commonly would have the screen in the living room where my computer's set, displaying the game that they would play with a controller, and in my own room I could have the game displayed in my room and be playing whatever I wanted to play. It did cause some audio issues, and it was kind of annoying to set up, and segregating the audio to different devices isn't always the easiest. It's gotten easier with Windows updates, but it was available to us, and we didn't have to spend a crazy amount of money to buy 2 consoles to do that. We already had a whole collection of consoles from my life of collecting them, and a whole collection of video games, something that I'm still pretty proud of because it is an emotional connection to me. But if you find yourself having an emotional connection to your console, I'd like to just let you know that you're misguided. It's not really worth it. But as you can see here, I have an Xbox 360 hard drive that I modified and repurposed and connected into my PC. This is a nostalgic thing for me, and it was nice to reutilize it in a way that I can use with my modern hardware. I'd like to real quick bring up the financial situation, our concept that I brought up. A lot of people think that getting into PC gaming is going to be through the roof expensive, and in some ways you're correct. Building a high quality PC is going to be expensive, but you have to understand your own expectations when you build your system. What are you going to be playing? What do you want to play? What do you want to play the next generation, or what next game release has? Let's say you're just interested in playing CSGO or Dirty Bomb, and you're not interested in anything that's you're going to want to play in 4K or something along those lines. Then in those situations, you don't need a top-of-the-line PC. You can usually opt to pay about $400, and that PC is going to last you for quite a while. Many of the games on PC have longer lifespans. It's just the nature of the beast. Dota 2 is still a heavily active community. I still see people actively playing CS Source. Garry's Mod is a game from my child, something I'm nostalgic about, and yet people who are just getting their first PCs are excited to play Garry's Mod. That's amazing. PC just has this legacy concept because it has an unlimited back-end library, games ranging all the way back to when PC gaming just originated. We don't worry about will the next console support the previous generation, which is something to consider if you're like me and you're interested in retro gaming as well. Retro gaming is extremely expensive. It's not something I'd like to pour a whole lot of money into. And having the availability of emulators is really, really interesting to me. Now, a lot of people will say emulating is bad, but it's really not that big of a deal. It depends on what you're emulating and if the money is actually going back to the people who produce the content. If you're emulating a game where the money goes back to the creator, or it just came out, something on a Wii U or a Switch, then yeah, you're pirating. It's doing a disservice to the developers. Even if you own a console and you go to GameStop and you buy a used game, that money doesn't go to the developers either. You're being a hypocrite with that statement, and I don't blame you, I get it. They're limiting printings of video games because the developers aren't making that money back because of consoles. On PC, you don't really have that concern. Keys are free. They just make a key and make it available for you to download. When you buy a key, no matter what, that money existed and went to the developers. Even if you go to a key resale site, that key must exist from the developers themselves. It can't just be created out of thin air. So on PC, almost every game you buy, a portion of that money goes back to the developers. In some websites like G2A, even if it is a resale, they still provide the developers a small royalty. It just means the developers are receiving more money from us to produce more high quality games, which if you're a gamer, you care about. You care about the people who make the games you love, and you don't scrimp on giving them money. And of course, piracy exists. Piracy on PC is much larger than every platform, but to sit there and pretend that piracy doesn't exist on console is hyper ignorant. And this is something that I tested in the past, and I messed around with quite heavily because I was a curious guy. I was interested in injecting different things into my games, and when even on my Xbox 360 that didn't have a JTAG, I found that I could install a game and use different methods and techniques when the case was taken apart to install different things. And then I can make a fake disk to launch those installed games. Or I could just inject the installed information data and launch it anyways by using an arcade service or something like that, or injecting a license over top of it. The checks were pretty easy to get by. So in essence, piracy on Xbox 360 was extremely easy, as well as the PlayStation 3. I knew several people that were not updating their PS3 and playing on these private servers by using DNS tricks. And there were DNS tricks even for something as much as the Sega Dreamcast. So we're going really far back with this console, and there were a lot of piracy even then. GameCube even had its own piracy. So it's something to really understand that, yes, it's harder, but it's not impossible. And usually you need a pretty decent computer to even do that, so it's something to consider. If we're going to talk about price, need to understand that these are things that exist on all platforms. Yes, your main payment to a PC is going to be quite high, but consider that at the end of the year, you have paid nothing for a service to play online. You just have it available to you. You have services like Kinguin, G2A, Steam Sales, several other stores available to you to pick up games, and they're going to be far cheaper. When Borderlands 3 came out, I wasn't extremely hyped on it. I don't really like the developer, I don't like a developer of the Borderlands series. He rubs me the wrong way, and it's not really a company that I'd like to give tons of money to and advocate for. And as you guys know on this channel, I advocate for quite a few indie studios. I'm actually working with quite a few indie studios rather often. And yeah, I went online and I looked for the biggest deal I could get because I was excited to play it. I mean, it was Borderlands 3 for Christ's sake. That was amazing to get. What was it, like 7 years since the last Borderlands? That's awesome that we got Borderlands 3. I never thought we would. And I paid $40. I paid $40 and I was like, you know what? I'm saving $20. It's a good deal. I'll get it. So 2 days after Borderlands 3 release, I got it for $40. You couldn't even get that back if you were to even try to get credit at GameStop with a trade-in, which is just another point of contention, how much these facilities abuse you and your credits and money and things like that. You don't need to worry about refunding games on PC because it's extremely easy. If you buy something on Steam and you don't like it, you can just simply return it and you get your full money's worth. So, what's my point? Why would I want you to try PC? Well, for starters, the free online service is a plus. Having the ability to go to things like Humble Bundle and Fanatical.com and introduce yourself to different games that will never see the light of day on a console, things like RTSs and things like that won't be brought over, is something that I advocate for. It's something worth trying. And I can sit here and I could talk about the pros of using a mouse and keyboard in FPSs, but I understand for the most part it comes down to your opinion. But I personally think objectively the mouse and keyboard is superior, and if you're a streamer, I would say objectively using a mouse and keyboard makes your streams look better because you can bind different DPIs and do different cinematic things in your streams by making your characters turn and things like that look smoother. You can also make it seem more realistic where they're not in this like weird axis. I never really enjoyed how console analog sticks worked anyways. It always felt uncomfortable to me, janky, unrealistic, but again, these are opinions. But if you take the time to learn mouse and keyboard, you'll probably find that yes, it is not bad. It's really just knowing where to place your hand on the keyboard and hitting those correct keys. And it's not really difficult to glance down when you're directly in front of your monitor. But that's to say that you're sitting in front of a desk. Let's assume you're not sitting in front of a desk. They have different travel mats that you can use on your couch. I've seen them pretty commonly used in some streams. People who do couch gaming but prefer PC will have these little armchair rigs that they sit their arms on and play. And I've seen people actually get into PC and not have a place for their PC, so they just set it on the side of their TV stand and play their games with a rig like that. And they don't have any complaints. They say they're rather comfortable and it's not hard to set up. Wireless mouse and keyboarding these days is extremely good. The latency isn't terrible. I don't prefer it. I like my wired stuff, but it is an option. If gaming is your preferred, you still have Steam Picture available to you. You can take the time and port or add all non-Steam games into the Steam library, and you can access your Steam Big Picture by pressing the Xbox controller icon 2 times, and then it will bring it up. It's extremely streamlined. If you decide to use a PS4 controller on your PC, the touchpad actually controls your mouse. You can right and left click with the touchpad, meaning you're not only limited to Steam Big Picture anymore. You can access everything you want with that touch keyboard, touch and pad. And Steam will actually recognize that you're using it and provides you with an on-screen keyboard when prompted, which is extremely neat. I don't know if that's part of the beta program, but that's really easy to opt into to try out. It's really cool. I no longer use my PC in front of a TV. I did for a while. I actually played through Final Fantasy X in front of a TV. It was pretty good. And another thing, let's get into exclusivity. A lot of people like to talk about exclusives, things like Forza or God of War. Number one, those aren't exclusives. You're completely incorrect. It's okay that you're completely incorrect. There are exclusives on these consoles, that is not to be doubted, but a lot of the big headliners aren't exclusives. It's false advertising. I can play Forza on my PC. I can play God of War on my PC. These are things available to us on PC. PlayStation Now exists on PC, which means I can opt into their service, play a game, and opt out of their service. I can pay. When God of War was available to PC, My first time playing it was on PC, and it was $10.99. I got to play through it, and later I was gifted it on PC or PS4 by a couple friends, and they didn't know I had already played it because they knew I never used my PS4. But it was extremely irrelevant to me that I even owned a PS4 at that point, and I just chose to use my PC. And yeah, there are so many games available to us. It's ridiculous. My Steam library has just recently broken 1,000. My external library just broke 3,000. And plus my emulators, it's something close to like 12,000 games in total on my PC. To put that into perspective, you would have to own complete archives of, I believe, 6 console generations. And that's ridiculous. And you would have to have physical games for the most part because a lot of consoles didn't have digital content. So my entire video game collection can be in this corner. Because of that, I don't need physical releases. I know some people really enjoy their physical releases, and I get that. But that's okay. That's okay. But you can get physical releases for your PC as well. And yes, sometimes they just come with a Steam code and a bonus disc, but understand that it's still available to you. And if you're like me, you buy it and you segregate your games into different hard disks, or SSDs in this case. I do have hard disks for my my emulators and things like that. Games that don't require extremely fast load times, I tend to put on lower speed, more reliable HDDs. But these are options to me. I don't have to worry about scratches on a disk, for instance. I could just re-download them, put them onto a mass storage media, and they're not going anywhere. I can plug it in just like this drive here. I have another one here in the back, and I have five external drives down here underneath my system, and those are all loaded up with games ready to go. This is a pretty extreme example of PC. It's not an example that I would say you need to do per se. There you go. One of the things that I would recommend if you're interested in getting into PC is if you already own a PC, just do a little research, find out what CPU is in your system, and there's a wonderful website called User Benchmark where you can compare it and understand where it falls in stats. Tons and tons and tons of people have been using User Benchmark for a long time, and it also provides you an opportunity to do your research really easily. You can compare GPUs against each other to figure out where you want to be. It has FPS stats underneath it for the games that you might want to play, but it gives you an idea of where those games are going to play on that GPU. If you're very specific on what you want to play, say you're only interested in getting into esports, which are relatively light games to play, you don't need a crazy GPU to play them. You don't need to get a 2080 Ti. You don't need to get a 2070. You can go with a 1050 or a 1050 Ti and not upgrade your PSU and just get a passive card like an RX 550 or a 560 or a LP 1050 Ti. These are all cards that don't need extra power, and they will take your rig and make it into a gaming PC. And many of these cards can be found for $120, if not less. I have cards behind me, a 650 Ti and an R9 380. This is an R9 380, and this is a 650 Ti. When you're looking for a GPU that's going to be lightweight, a 650 Ti like this is pretty much what you're looking for. This is a 1/6-pin header PCIe, which if you're in console, you might not know what that means, but essentially PCIe is this bridge here. This is what allows you to transmit the data. And this here is your PCIe. I know you can't see it, but that's where the power supply goes. And here is an R9 380, a much beefier card. When I originally got this card, it was one of the better cards on the market. If you were into about high 1080p settings gaming, this is what you were kind of looking for. This was a very hot and powerful card. It was a total tank. It required 2 8-pin headers. It was very, very powerful card. And yeah, I mean, AMD versus NVIDIA is a whole nother conversation. So talking about hardware, I have this PC right here. So this PC is something that I've been working on for a really long time. I don't really need to go into extreme detail to explain what's here, but I've been building this as a budget option PC for fun. So here we have an LGA 775 Q99, Q9650, Q9660, Q9960, I forget, and a EVGA 400 watt with a twin pin PCIe. So what I'm waiting for is to find good RAM for this computer at a fair price, and currently this PC should be able to run pretty much anything I throw at it at roughly 720p high settings, including modern games with hardware that's from like 2006. So a computer from 2006, and if you've ever watched my streams and met Eden, he actually uses a computer from about this time period. He has a 950 with a Q9600. I believe that's the model of the CPU. And he still plays things like Destiny just fine. So to say that you need a supercomputer to enjoy gaming is extremely ignorant. This computer will probably cost me about $120 when it's done. It has about 700 gigabytes of storage. I just have these 2 HDDs here. And it's a fun little project PC to keep me intrigued in computers. I'll probably finish this, do a video on it, and then give it away or sell it. I don't know. But this is a wonderful example of how you can pick up an extremely cheap case and start building for fun and get interested in the hardware and do it yourself kind of thing. And it's something you can be proud of. Just like the system here that's glowing red, I can be proud of that system because I took the time to build it myself. It's something I put my heart into. I picked out the parts, I balanced my budget, I saved my money, and I got what I wanted, and I'm not going to complain about it because I deserve everything I got because I put it into it. I wasn't forced to get whatever a provider like Sony or Xbox wanted to give me. For now, this thing's just a footrest. Shout out to Adam. I can obviously sit here and talk about PC for days, and I'm sure that that's clear to you at this point. But I want you to be aware that you should just do your own research. If you're ignorant of what, I'm not going to say ignorant, I'm going to say nescient, which is pretty much the same thing. It's just nicer. If you're nescient about gaming on a computer, that's okay. But I'd like to make it clear, you don't need to go out of your way. If you can find a decent Athlon chip and a decent GPU, and you can recycle those parts, which means you have parts not going into a landfill, and you can experience the games that you want to play at a quality level, why wouldn't you take that cheaper route? It allows you to put more money away. Maybe you will really enjoy gaming on a PC, and it'll allow you to take apart your computer and not feel bad because you're going to put it back together and it's going to be better than before. And then you can be proud of that. Now, I'm somebody with the skill and knowledge to take apart a PS4 and an Xbox One and put them back together and even repair them, which I have done. That's how I got my consoles. If it wasn't for my skill, I wouldn't have had these consoles. I wouldn't have bothered. But the opportunity was presented to me to get these consoles, and I was like, sure. But now I just look at them as an opportunity to say, when the fanboys want their systems, I'll just throw them on the market and make a couple $100 because they're not intelligent enough to make the option to switch over to PC. I just want to make it clear to everybody that if you have an Xbox One store already filled out with a library, they're working on porting a lot of that over to PC. A lot of games are being emulated into working on a PC by Microsoft. If you already own the library, in many cases you can just put them on a PC anyways. Sony's the only one that hasn't been catching up to this program, but they do have PlayStation Now. If there are a bunch of PlayStation exclusives, they are available to you on PC, assuming that you have the right specs and internet speed to play them. But in some cases, and especially with PlayStation Now, this is a really interesting topic. If you're on Ethernet and you have like an old computer, I actually tested this with a XP computer, which was really hard and it was kind of finicky. I could actually launch games on PlayStation Now. I actually experienced God of War on a Windows XP computer. It was really weird. It was pretty cool. I had to modify the executable, but it was really cool. I wish I recorded it, but we were just messing around, me and my buddy. It was neat. So yeah, that's the thing. If you have a laptop or a computer available to you, download the PlayStation Now app. If you already have PlayStation Now, give it a shot on PC. See how the experience is for you. Don't take that as the holy grail of PC gaming. But if you already have an Xbox and you have an okay PC, maybe consider going on eBay and picking up a cheap GPU. Throw it in. Give it a shot. Play Sea of Thieves on your PC. Play Gears of War 5 on your PC if it'll run it. That game, holy crap. That was a pretty powerful game. And just really take the time. It's special to me. It's important to me. I want to see gaming get pushed to new levels. I'm unhappy with the service that different game sellers has done. I'm unhappy with some things that G2A has done, so I'm not a hypocrite in that regard. I want you to be aware that this video isn't attacking anybody. Oh my god, I'm so tired of the attacking. But I get it. It's a part of being on this platform. And if I need to retort somebody, I will. And I'll be more than happy to watch some reply videos on this. This is monologue. I did edit some things, but this is one take for the most part. More and more people are switching to PC gaming because of the anti-consumerism that is on console. And I'd like to be an advocate for PC because things are getting better on PC. We're getting more games. We're getting more exclusives. We have open peripherals. You can use whatever you want, essentially. With a little configuring. I know Sony still doesn't want their drivers on PC, but DS4 Pad does support PS4. Actually, it's completely built for PS4, and it's just available on the internet. You can just download that, and your PS4 works. You can use a Bluetooth on your PC. It's all perfectly available to you. You can pick up the Bluetooth for your Xbox 360 controllers and play modern games with your Xbox 360 controllers. I know that was interesting to me. I know this is a little breach of what I was talking about, but when Xbox One was like announced, a lot of people were complaining that they couldn't use their Xbox 360 controllers on their Xbox One, and I was kind of one of those people. I was like, that's kind of dumb. There's not too much different, so I don't know why they didn't allow backwards compatibility with their controllers. There's that word again. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And I'm playing brand new games on my PC with my Xbox 360 controller, and that's when I stopped, and I was like laughing to myself, and I was like, oh man, if these people just understood that they can play a lot of these exclusives like Sunset Overdrive, it was ported to Steam pretty quickly. And it's not a big deal. I can still use this custom Xbox 360 controller that I made myself. I mean, it's 3D printed. I did the whole thing myself. On their PC just fine. It's not a big deal. And I can use it to this day. I could pick up extremely cheap Xbox 360 controllers, and they're still perfectly fine assets for my computer. I have 3 drawers here of controllers because I like to play Skate and things like that, and Session now, and that breaks the joysticks pretty quick, and those are really hard to resolder, or solder, sorry. Yeah, I like using the new Nintendo Switch stuff on my PC. That's pretty funny. I just got a Wii sensor bar for PC. That's pretty fun. I can use my play with my Wiimote, and I can play games that are like homebrew, or they have mods to play like Resident Evil 2, the remake, with the Wiimote. It's pretty cool. There's a lot you can do if you take the time to learn. There's so much stuff available. Mods. I can get into a whole conversation of mods. I can get into storage, the ability to have as many games as you essentially want, because hard drives are so cheap and so plentiful right now, and you don't have to worry about compatibility because you can learn and make it compatible. It's just a YouTube video away. Or ask me. Come to my Discord, ask me. I'd be happy to help you. I help people all the time in my Discord. I've helped people who really wanted to get computers but didn't have a big budget. I sat with them for hours to budget them out the right PC, and I'd be more than happy to if you're just willing to come over and have a casual conversation with me for a little while, so I know that you're trustworthy, that you're not going to do something shady. And there's a lot of people in my Discord who are now well educated and versed in gaming and computer parts, who are more than willing to advise you on where to lean, especially if you're on a budget. And really, a Ryzen 5, whatever generation, and an RX 580 will carry you still for like another 5 or 6 years. You don't need RTX. I've already said this, but you don't need RTX. You don't need 32 gigabytes of RAM. You don't need a 2080 Ti. You don't need an i9. You don't need an i7. You don't need a Ryzen 9. You don't need a Ryzen 7. I mean, yeah, it's nice. It's quality of life, but you don't need it. You can get amazing quality by just taking a few steps down. This computer that I play on and I stream on, and I have 2 monitors. I used to have 3, but it broke. Funny, if you don't watch the stream, it blew up on stream. It was crazy. It's a Ryzen 1700. I didn't even upgrade. We're on Gen 3 already, and it's still amazing. And a 1070 Ti, which I bought used, and had to repaste, buy a shroud for, and put together. And this computer probably cost me like $600 at the end of it. It's got 32 gigabytes of RAM. That was the most expensive asset of it. But for the most part, I was budgeting for the best performance I could get. I still had a budget. I know, crazy. The hardcore gamer guy who has all these games had the budget. Yeah, because computers are expensive. And yeah, you have to budget. So I did the best that I could with the money that I wanted to spend, because I'm financially responsible. $600 for a computer that will last far longer than a console, and I don't have to pay for online service, with games that are so much cheaper, was a way better, way healthier purchase. Because in the long term, I'll be saving a ton of money. When you have to go buy the next generation console because your Xbox One is obsolete and they stop making games for it, or your PS4 is obsolete, and you have to go pick up the next console, over the course of however long, I think it's 5 years, you'll have spent over $1,000. I'll still have only spent $600. And that's excluding peripherals and things like that, of course. But even then, I opted to get those kinds of things, like the fancy M.2s and the extra HDs. These are things I opted to get. Understand that. You could just buy a 2 terabyte hard drive and plop it in and be perfectly fine. Or if you're just playing some games, not a ton, you could opt for a 500 gigabyte SSD just so you have faster load times. These are things that you can consider when you're building, and you can lower your price by changing what peripherals you get or essentials. You don't need a top of the line mouse because you're planning on playing with a controller, then get a cheap mouse. If you don't need a top of the line keyboard because you're not doing competitive stuff, then don't get a top of the line keyboard. These are options that you have. You don't just have to be like, well, $60 controller, even though I'm just playing Mario Odyssey. Something to consider. You can say, I want a controller, but I don't really want to spend a lot on a controller. I'll just buy like a cheapy Logitech or, one of those $12 USB. I actually have one, an Xbox 360 wired, cheap as controller, and it's super good. Like, it's a generic one, so like not every game supports it. You have to use the Steam controller settings, which is so convenient because I can just click on one button and it works. So nice. And I can play these games with this off-brand Xbox 360 controller, so if it breaks, I don't have to break one of my nice on-brand ones that are a little bit higher quality. So I've been using these off-brand controllers pretty frequently, but that are like $8 a pop, and they last a while. Like, this one's last like 6 months or something like that. I had an Xbox controller last like 4 months when I started playing Session. That's bad. I could not imagine being a console gamer that likes games that require a lot of rotation on the stick and a lot of pressure on the stick, because when those things go, it is so expensive. And when you're buying like 3 or 4 controllers, like 4 controllers cost $240. What? I could buy a nice GPU for that price and just pick up like 4 whatever controllers on eBay. And yeah, it's not going to be the best experience on a controller, but it's still at least an option. And those off-brand console controllers are fucking trash and way overpriced. Like, I could not believe what Afterglow wanted for their controllers, and they hurt my hands so bad. And one of the reasons why I own so many controllers is, going back to my previous conversation, is I actually love the Xbox One controller. They're just bulky enough for me to be comfortable. I own so many controllers because I was trying to find the right fit. And believe it or not, the Duke Xbox original controller was my favorite controller of all time. And there are adapters to make it USB, so I can use it with my computer. So if you're ever watching one of my streams, you might catch me playing with a Duke if my hands hurt that day, and I'm playing something that will obviously support that controller, which is everything that I want it to. Indie games, you got libraries upon libraries. This video is turning into a 45-minute rant, as it always does. Just consider it. All right, end of the video. I hope you guys watched it all the way through. Consider it. Go pick up a cheap GPU. I have things coming up on screen so you guys are aware of the prices. If you already own a computer, User Benchmark is there for you. See if it supports by going to things like Intel Legacy or Tom's Hardware. Ask a question. Give them information on what your computer is, what model is it, and they will tell you. They can link it to you and help you. And these are people that love to do that kind of stuff because they're passionate about what they do. They're passionate about saving people the time and money and giving them the resources to learn. This isn't just about video games. It's so much more than that. This is about giving people the resources and the freedoms to do what we do. The ability to make a game whatever you want it to be, because not every game is good. But on PC, we can make it good. The community can band together to make mods. Like, we can hire people to make it better. Ports aren't always good on PC. This is a fact. Dark Souls was kind of meh. But you want to know what's amazing? The teams that got together who loved Souls, and they fixed it. They made it better, in my opinion. The modding community that added more weapons. They added art. They made their own bosses and their own DLC available to you to inject into these games. Like, that's amazing. You're missing out on such a huge thing in the community of gaming, and it's sad. I have friends that dedicate themselves only to console, and I mean, that's their choice, but they're missing out on a lot, and I feel bad. And I'd love for them to have a PC. Not everybody needs a PC. Not everybody can afford to put down that kind of money to get a PC. You could part it out. You can buy little by little and build it up over time. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fun. I did it with a lot of computers. My very first computer took me 7 months to build. There's nothing wrong with that. This case was a used pickup that was from like 2007, and it's modded to support water cooling. And you know what? I don't care. It's mine. I did it. It's awesome. And something that when people are like, "Oh, that's weird," I'm like, "Yeah, isn't it weird? That's pretty cool, though, right?" I had to put the hole in it, and then I had to glue it in, and then bracket it in. It's cool. Is it functional? Yeah. Is it logical? No, not really. I could have just picked up a water cooling case for like $70. It's not that expensive, but I didn't want to. I already had a case. Let's just mod it. Can't mod your consoles unless you want to. I swear to God, I just saw a ghost. That was weird. It was like a shadow shot by. That was weird. You can't. They're proprietary. You can't get in and add RAM. You can't get in and change the GPU. You can't get in and change the CPU. You can't even change the software. You're just so limited. And I understand the convenience. I get it. We live in a society of convenience. People pay for convenience. I get it. But there's convenience on PC if you're willing to learn. And there's no reason not to learn. So, I'm sorry if I sound superior, as if I have this superiority complex, but this is something of passion for me. And I've seen a lot of people come to PC and learn so much more than just gaming. People who are developing games now, making music, amazing artists that learn digital artwork studios, and people who are making assets for video games, making music for devs, and all kinds of awesome stuff. People that I never expected to do those kinds of things are doing it, and they're in our Discord, and they're available, and you can talk to them, and it's awesome. People wonder why my content here on YouTube isn't exploding. I don't know. I guess I make mediocre content, and I really could put more time into it, and I apologize that I don't, but understand that this isn't my hobby. I'm not here to scrooge you out of your money or whatever, scrounge you for money. I don't know. If I ever go anywhere, it would be nice. But at the same time, I'd like to have a positive message and not be attacked or have growth for being attacked. I don't know. This is all getting edited. So with that said, everybody, I hope this video is informative. If you have questions, just come on over to the Discord. If you are interested in buying a budget PC, or you already have a computer and you just need questions answered, just come over and ask. Discord supports pictures. You can put them up in the ranch, which is one of the text channels, at one of us, one of the people who are willing to talk about it. And we're willing to help you and teach you and give you the resources to take gaming into your hands and into the next level. And I hope we can, and I hope more people join. If you are interested, or if you believe in this topic, come on over, help people. Budget build on Newegg and share it, things like that. I do that all the time. I do these like $400 PC builds that are 720p ready, that are going to get higher than 60 FPS, that will run in 720p ultra. Yeah, that's not amazing graphics, but if you're an esporter, it's perfect. You can pwn and frag noobs with ease at those kind of settings, and those systems aren't going anywhere. I know for a fact, a lot of people are using the Ryzen 5 1600 inside of the $20 Roseville case with the, I believe it's $40 Asus cheap micro ATX board, and they're pairing it with 8 gigabytes of critical RAM, which is like the cheapest, or crucial RAM, which is like really cheap, or the Corsair Value RAM, which is also cheap and good. And they're also pairing it with a RX 560, and apparently it's really well built if you pair it with a decent SSD, like a 500 gigabyte SSD. And these computers are like, I believe there's something in the range of like $300, and they're like blowing consoles out of the water. To be fair, 480 to a 560, you can actually go to user benchmark if you want to see this. The 560 isn't even close. You're better off getting a 950 for that kind of price. The 950 I believe is like 10% better. But I'll have the values on screen. But I'm gonna end the video here, guys. I'm gonna go edit it up. I'm talking to myself. If you'd like the edits in this video and like more information on this thing, like I said, come to Discord, come to Discord, come to Discord, come to the Discord. Subscribe. Even Linus Tech Tips is like, we don't understand why people are obsessed with console. And they're actually doing those sleeper builds where they're taking consoles and taking the guts out and putting in PC parts so they run better. Awesome. Peace.